Hi guys, I'm Mike.
And I'm Steve.
And this is F1 Fanatics. Welcome back to the channel and to the F1 podcast.
Oh yeah, dramatic music.
That makes it sound dramatic, doesn't it? Boom. The place where we just chat F1 for a bit.
Yeah.
And hopefully you guys stay and listen and enjoy it. Obviously, you know, we have the weekend's action to go through. And there haven't really been any major stories probably coming out of it. So we'll just probably mainly focus on the Nurburgring today.
Yep, probably. There's a few bits that we'll probably sprinkle throughout.
Oh, sprinkle. A little bit there. A little bit there.
Sprinkles.
Over there.
Obviously, Fernando is also testing for Renault, obviously yesterday.
But today, as we film this.
So we'll talk about that as well.
Yeah.
About Fernando.
We'll do. But there is only one place to start the F1 podcast. And, you know, it probably got swept a little bit under the carpet because Daniel Ricciardo is such a hugely popular driver and it was probably swept out of it. But Lewis Hamilton equalled Michael Schumacher's all-time win record this weekend. And I think we should probably just spend a little bit of time going, that's incredible.
Pretty incredible. 91
right, that's it
wins.
then.
Moving on to the next one. I think he did it 20 more races than Schumacher, but it's like 91 in 260 or something. I think Schumacher got 91 in 240. So both incredible. I think, I mean, obviously we spoke about it a little bit last week about the greatest of all time argument between the two and gave our opinions on that one. So make sure you check out last week's if you want us to kind of talk a bit more there. But I think just focusing on Lewis, you know, there will always be well, he's got a good car, so it's easy for him to win. But to be such a relentless winner, and he has come up against so many tough teammates in his career. I mean, his first teammate was Fernando Alonso, the current two-time Formula One world champion at the time. And being thrown into a top seat where basically you're expected to win, because if he didn't, he would have been dropped very quickly. Yeah. So he's always really been in a high-pressure environment. Like, expectation has always been on his shoulders, and he's found a way to win he has a win in every single one of the F1 seasons that he's competed in. Pretty impressive.
Which, yeah, it's incredible. I don't see anyone, bar F1 coming more of a spec series, so like available, so more likely for other teams to get wins. Top teams don't tend to throw a talented guy right into the spotlight, into a championship contending car anymore. So, one, that's the ability of Lewis Hamilton, but two, yeah, just incredible. Records just continue to fall, and I fully expect it by the end of the season. I was going to say Portimao, but we know with Sochi and Mugello that things could go a bit. I know he won in Mugello. It was Monza, wasn't it? They went tits up. But you know, we know that things can go a little bit crazy.
He's got plenty of chances.
He certainly does. But yeah, what we are witnessing is one of the greatest of all time, and it's amazing just to kind of see him do what he does over and over again. And Tara wants to come in and say congratulations to Lewis as well. So,
she's a big fan.
Big fan of Lewis. Is that right, Tara?
No.
Maybe. I don't know. Tell in the face.
There was a murmur there.
We'll take it. She may be just more interested in finding something to play with. But anyway,
it was a faultless drive from him.
Yes, it was.
It was a classic Lewis dominating. Looked after his tyres early on. Got the easy move on Bottas,
and then never looked back.
Yeah,
just easy. As easy as you like. Lewis Hamilton finds a way, and he actually did have to fight for this one.
Yeah,
a bit. Bottas did, and I think that's what you were saying. Lewis was post race a little bit like, yeah, I was impressed by Bottas.
Yeah.
which
Well, it's
you
been a
could
bit
take
of a
it either
fight,
way.
yeah.
He goes, he's probably like, oh, that's nice.
Yeah, haven't seen that before.
I haven't seen that all season, apart from race 1.
Didn't realise anyone was challenging me.
It's good for the fans. But anyway, we'll move on to the other positive notes. And so we'll go Hulkenberg, the last minute man.
Last minute man.
The man who is just... He said he wasn't done with Formula 1. And I'm not going to be funny. The 3 auditions that he's had, you go, I was like, Nico Hulkenberg, he's had his opportunity in F1. Yes, he's a talented driver, and go. But heck, what I've seen of Nico Hulkenberg, he needs to be on that grid for 2021. If we're talking about like best drivers, what he's come in and done in such a short space of time, like it was 10 minutes practice that he got in qualifying. Before in the race, going on from P20 to P8. Yes, that Racing Point is a great car, but still, like
P20 to P8 and he's helped the team go to 3rd in the constructors. What more can you ask from him?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what team might be looking for a second driver to help support their main driver within a team. With strong, consistent performances
and have good chemistry,
and also giving feedback that led to the suspension upgrades that came into the team racing. But I don't know what possible
off the
team
top of my head. I can't think
possibly want a driver like Nico Hulkenberg. We'll come on to that.
Moving on to Red Bull and their driver situation.
We will come on to that, but sticking with Racing Point, it was pretty incredible from Nico.
Yeah. And on the other side of the garage, pretty great drive from Checo. The man looking for an F1 seat keeps banging in these performances.
He's the only one left, I would say, in this 2020 season that needs a podium, because he got stuffed earlier on in the season.
In Austria.
And his drive deserved a podium.
Yeah.
But as always in F1 and in all racing, circumstances sometimes have to go your way, and for whatever reason, things aren't really going Checo's way.
No. Ever since Austria, the safety cars haven't come out at the right time. Strategy calls haven't been quite right. Yeah. But solid P4, again, it was pretty much robbed by the safety car. I don't have much doubt that Checo would have caught Ricciardo at the end. But yeah, that's just how his season's going. He deserves one, but will he actually get one? I don't know.
It'd be interesting. I think there's one thing we can say from the 2020 season is expect the unexpected.
Yeah.
In terms of that 3rd podium position.
Yeah.
Because there are only 3 regular cars who compete in it, and it's not out of the question that one of those 3 might have some issues in the race, either be penalties, car breakdowns, or whatever poor performance in the case of Bottas. That 3rd place on the podium has been a little bit more up for grabs with Ferrari driving in Formula 2 this year.
Whoa, interesting.
Oh God, no! GP2 engine. Now it's made the joke. Oh.
Sad time.
Ricciardo.
But I was going to say, yes, moving on to Ricciardo. Ricciardo goes first podium, obviously. And Renault got their first podium since 2011, Malaysia.
Nick Heidfeld.
It is the 7th constructor to stand on the podium. I say stand on the podium. Constructor doesn't stand on it. 7th constructor to appear on the podium.
This season.
So only Williams, Haas and Alfa Romeo haven't been on the podium.
That's incredible.
I know.
What? I mean, on that basis, what a season.
We talk about it being dominated by Mercedes, but there have been 7 constructors appearing on the podium.
Obviously, we were talking about it, a few weeks. You can't have like that relentless winning at the top. Yes, you can't criticise Mercedes for that because they're brilliant, but build an incredible car, have an incredible driver, goes together, means you're going to win stuff. But for encouraging the growth and building of the sport, they need to change that. But like always, that midfield, because if you look at the midfield, It's brilliant.
Yeah.
The unpredictability in that. There hasn't been a clear dominant. Everyone thought Racing Point clearly dominate third. Yes, they went third this weekend, but Renault have been fighting. Ocon had put in performances as well. Renault would have been right up there with them. McLaren are still kind of sniffing around.
Yep.
In that position. They would have had a strong double points finish if Lando Norris had been able to go if his car didn't blow up.
Yep.
But yeah, Daniel Ricciardo's drive, finally he gets that podium for Renault. His first one since Monaco 2018, in Crofty's words, the King of Monaco!
King of Monaco. Well,
although not the true King of Monaco, a very talented driver, and I think Daniel Ricciardo has improved. This time at Renault's made him a better driver.
Yeah.
And going into McLaren, he's proven to be a team leader. He will drive McLaren forward with the resources that they have at their disposal, with everything in place. Daniel Ricciardo just solidifies. I was a bit iffy about him when he left Red Bull. I thought he was a good driver, but I genuinely thought in his first season that Nico Hülkenberg would show him up. Didn't case. He beat Nico Hülkenberg in the first season, and this season he has just gone, boom, up a gear. And I think, funnily enough, going into the midfield to then go back to the top, hopefully with McLaren, I think it's only going to make him a really exciting driver through his 30s.
Yeah. And the question has to be asked, gets asked so often with Renault improving, has he made the right decision? I think he said it was bittersweet. I believe the comment was, because he got a podium, progress is there in the team, downforce is improving because it's a downforcey track, Nurburgring. So clear progress for Renault, yet he's leaving. Whereas McLaren are struggling with pace.
So he might do all the hard work, and then Fernando Alonso comes in and gets a fair few podiums for Renault next season.
Yeah.
Because Fernando will be capable of that. Obviously, we'll talk about his testing coming in.
Yeah.
He's be interesting to see his feedback on the car. But yeah, if Daniel Ricciardo's getting these sort of performances, you can bet that Alonso will definitely be on that level, if not above, of what Ricciardo's performing at the moment. So, yeah, like, I think Brundle momentarily gone, it was like, God, could you imagine a team lineup for Renault of Ricciardo and Alonso? That, you'd start going, oh, hang on a minute.
That's the best on the grid.
Hang on a minute. Yeah.
Because that's better than Leclerc Sainz.
Yeah.
Which is probably going to be the best on the grid next season.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Yeah. But I can see, again, another weekend where Ocon just kind of went by the wayside. Not his fault the car retired on him, but he's one a bit like, which probably leads us on nicely to Bottas. Although he drives reasonable performances and does okay at times and does something to support his teammate, and at times Ocon has done that this season without challenging Ricciardo, a bit like Bottas, not really challenging Hamilton. They're kind of victims of their own downfall, because at the end of the day, yes, some bad luck might go their way, but when the luck is going their way, they don't really capitalise on it too much.
Yeah.
So Bottas, Stephen, do you want to lead us into Valtteri Bottas? I know you must be itching to praise the Finn for a fantastic performance in Sunday's race. Turn one.
Turn one was great. Turn one was great. Yes, he was slow off the line, but then defended brilliantly. No one took turn one. Everyone went wide, but he went even wider and came back onto the track and beat Lewis into turn two, and it was great. And then he went flying off, and you're like, "Go on, Blas! This is what you're good at. You go to the front and you dominate a race." And he just screwed up. Locked up. Didn't look after his tyres. Locked up. Forced to take the early pit stop. Then got unlucky. I will say unlucky because of the virtual safety car. And then he lost power, but it was. I said at driver ratings, it was always going to be a failure. After that lockup, it was always going to be a terrible weekend for him.
Yeah, as soon
Sunday.
as he conceded that lead
Yeah.
and conceded a position to Lewis Hamilton, things weren't going to go his way. And it is frustrating with Bottas. And actually, I'll tie in another question here.
Okay.
And going from there. Oh, and we do actually have Jonty's question later on in the podcast to go through on that.
Nice.
But is the Nurburgring one of the most difficult turn ones out there?
Yes.
Okay, well, there you go. That's because every time I see a race there, turn one always has got cars running wide on the first corner. It's just so difficult to make.
It's so tight. And there's not much of a runoff, so everyone's still together going into that turn one.
Yeah, and we'll talk about Nurburgring as a track anyway, I think, later on in the video. But yeah, it is. It's just...
And everyone was struggling for grip down there. So it was so tight, and people couldn't get the grip.
Well, it's like on a gradient, isn't it? It goes down, which makes it harder because you're braking in a downhill. So getting that braking point, I imagine, is one of the most difficult to go. And obviously, we've seen it even with some experienced drivers who've driven at the Nurburgring, Sebastian Vettel and Kimi Raikkonen, that they had issues going into that turn one.
Yeah. Well, Lewis and Bottas had issues because neither of them took turn one.
Very good point in terms of that.
Max was struggling on turn one. I'm trying to think off the top of my head who else. Everyone was struggling for grip into that turn one.
But back on Bottas, I suppose it is that final nail, if just to make sure, because there were a few nails before that we thought were the final nail. But no, this is the actual stamp. Like they've shipped it now.
70 points.
They've shipped the nail.
Or was it 69 points?
On the coffin of his title bid to the crematorium or burial ground, whatever he prefers, of his title bid.
Lewis has got 2 retirements in hand and a dodgy race. And how many races have we got left?
Not enough. Probably even if we did a super season of 2020 and 21, we wouldn't have enough for Valtteri Bottas to come back. That may be harsh, but unfortunately, poor Valtteri, it won't work his way, but he is a little bit of a victim of his own downfall.
Right, I just remembered his radio message at the end of Sochi, and then just seeing him locking up into turn one, giving away the lead.
To all my critics, we're back, Valtteri, don't worry. We're back, VB. Don't you worry about that, son. But yes, moving on to the other interesting case. Alexander Albon. Alexander Albon. And I get it. I've seen, and actually there's been plenty of, within the kind of normal media world, there's been lots of discussion on this. On Sky Sports, there's been lots of discussion about this. On the YouTube F1 side of things, there's been plenty of videos made about, is Albon good enough for Red Bull? We've been very clear from very early in the season that, hey, this isn't good enough. And then it continued not to be good enough. And I think more people are along that line of thinking. And there are a few in the camp that still probably defend him because, as always, he is a lovely human being.
Yeah, I think that's it.
I think everyone wills him to do well. You want to see him as a person. You want to go, that is a guy who would be really grateful of the opportunity. He would really kind of cherish. He looks like someone that you'd go, wow, he's a lovely person to support.
Yeah.
But we're not talking about his personality. Like
we're talking about driver ability.
As much as people dislike Fernando's personality in the media, in terms of it and what they appear to think he's like as a person, although, the majority of him don't know as a person. The majority of us don't know Alex Albon as a person private, but, from the little we've seen, people would go, Alex Albon, lovely guy, Fernando Alonso, I don't want to spend any time with him, type of thing. But he's the gnarly, nasty guy whose head is in all the data. He's a relentless winner and challenges himself to all the things. Not saying Albon doesn't do that, but he's at a stage of his career where he hasn't learned. I mean, in fairness to Fernando Alonso, in that case, had a season at Minardi, had Renault who were lurking, building as a team, kind of like the Renault now.
Yeah.
A midfield team, and then 2005-06 got in a position where they had a car that could win the championship.
Yeah.
Type of thing. So, allowed time to develop. And I think all the great drivers have been in that situation. Lewis Hamilton is a rarity in the case that has been thrown into a top seat. So it's unfair on Alex Albon, but Alex Albon is no Lewis Hamilton.
No.
He's no Max Verstappen. And even Max Verstappen was given time to develop in a kind of younger team. So he just needs to get out of the team. Because what he's doing on track now is just making it to the stage that it might be he just gets dumped from F1 altogether.
Yeah.
Because if Red Bull drop him and go, right, you're not in the Red Bull seat, but there you go, actually we're promoting Yuki Tsunoda. I'm going to have Yuki Tsunoda and Gasly in AlphaTauri. Is there anyone on the F1 grid who would go, I want Alex Albon, when they've got Sergio Perez and Nico Hülkenberg available?
It's good to touch on Yuki, because I know Ted was saying, because it was like, because Honda's pulling out, will Yuki Tsunoda come into F1? They're like, Red Bull still want to promote Yuki early, because bringing him in next season would be early, because you'd want him to win a championship or get a few more seasons in F2, just to keep Honda pushing for next year. Because if they have a Japanese driver with a Honda power car, they're going to want good performances in that AlphaTauri for Yuki. So
on that basis, I would say we're looking at Alex Albon not competing in Formula 1 next year.
It's a competition between the two.
And he's very unlucky, because you can't... Last summer, you can't turn around to Red Bull, Alex, we want to promote you to the main team. You can't go, no.
Yeah.
But he's also... Well, hey, you don't know, in life, opportunities are given to you, you either adapt or you sink. And Albon is very quickly sinking.
Yeah. The argument of, because there was always that argument at the start of season, would it be different if he got that podium in Brazil? Would it be different if he got that podium in Austria? He got that podium in Mugello, but we haven't seen anything in the last two races.
No. Nothing. And a direct quote from Drive to Survive is on Pierre Gasly was, we don't want a driver who is finishing P8 and P9. And that is exactly what Alex Albon is doing most races now. From that thing. He might get the occasion. He's not getting, bare minimum this season should be like 90% P4. And the odd race where it either a retirement up top, so he takes advantage and gets a podium, or he drops back. And not having, and to give excuses of, well, the car's difficult to drive. Well, screw it, that's racing.
Yeah.
Max adapts better. Sorry, kiddo. Tough luck.
Yeah.
That's, you don't get these opportunities very much. You don't need time. Sport is a relentless and ruthless business, especially in something with high costs like Formula 1. You cannot afford to go, yeah, let's pump this, and that he might. And it is with Albon. It's not like he had a kind of junior career that he tore everything up like a Nico Hülkenberg. And even Grosjean to an extent.
Yeah.
Who like win championships, and you're going, wow, this kid is a really big deal. We should give him time and give him the thing. He had an okay junior career, and you can say maybe that was backing or not. that affected that, but maybe Formula E just is a better place for him.
He'll have the fan boost.
It certainly would. So maybe that is.
It just, the main thing is just every race seems to struggle. It's always a challenge for Albon. Whereas you have Max, who described most races as uneventful. Did the best he did, but it wasn't a race of his own. Why isn't Albon doing that more often? Why isn't he doing it at least once in a season? Every race is a challenge. It's like, Albon's having to fight through the back markers, fight through the midfield, relying on a safety car. Every race is a challenge.
At this stage, you got to look at the whole. So he's now been in there a year. He did okay in his first half of the season. He didn't do brilliantly, but he did okay in terms of he had a solid start that you go, that's all right.
Yeah.
He didn't light the world up at Toro Rosso. He had a very good performance in China, which is the standout from memory there. And he did pretty well in his first wet weather race in Germany, considering he'd never driven in the rain before.
Yeah.
But since then, there is no argument to say that Alexander Albon has done, because any positive position he's been in for a podium, which is what Red Bulls want to challenge for, has all been due to fortuitous circumstances. Now, that's not his fault. Sometimes you've got to take advantage of those fortuitous circumstances. But at no point has he driven himself into that situation.
Yeah.
It has been either a Verstappen retirement, a Bottas Hamilton kind of issue, or a safety car
At
has
the right time.
suddenly kind of bounced him up.
Mugello. Austria.
But yeah, and it's been a while since we've had a good old Alexander Albon kind of thing. We've now gone to the extent that Alex Albon won't be in F1 in 2021. If Yuki Tsunoda gets his super license points, Alex Albon won't be in F1 in 2021.
And haven't they reduced the requirements for super license points as well because of COVID? But Helmut Marko said Yuki has to compete for it, didn't he? But
yeah, that was at the start of the season, pre-COVID.
yeah.
I think he's probably done enough.
He probably has. Where is he now in the championship? Is he third or is he fourth? Because I'm not sure if Lundgaard has jumped up.
I think Lundgaard jumped up to P3.
Yeah.
Who had dropped down and then gone bounced up. But he still needs a kind of strong finish to the season, Yuki. That's sure, because those things can quickly change. Because I think Robert Schwartzman's even dropped down as fifth or outside the top five. Yeah. You know, and obviously he was leading the championship for a good while.
Yeah.
So, and also I think a big point to go, they've all been very positive, and even Helmut Marko has been very positive about Alex. But even he said Alex's performances need to improve, and that's the first one you go, uh-oh.
When you start getting warning signs like that.
When you start getting signs from Helmut, you're going, your days are numbered, son.
Christian Horner's still going. There was plenty more from Albon before the radiator got pierced, because I think that was the main problem. But when Helmut starts talking, he's the one that makes the decisions or has a strong voice in those arguments.
You go, ah, dear.
Yeah.
Oh, dear. But we'll leave the Alex bashing.
Yep. And the Bottas bashing.
And the Bottas bashing. And we'll go on to Seb bashing. No, we're not bashing Seb. This weekend was another one in terms of he just is not happy. Yep. He wants to be in Aston Martin next year.
Yep.
Ferrari actually did improve.
Yes, on the positive side, Ferrari bought quite a few upgrades. The car was sticking to the track a lot more controllable. So you saw in Leclerc's fantastic qualifying performance. Still hasn't got the pace, nearly enough pace to compete with McLaren, Renault, Racing Point, because they quite easily overtook him, and even Pierre Gasly in the AlphaTauri was still quicker. But progress is being made for Ferrari. It's looking good. It's not looking like a disaster. Apparently they've got a new engine for 2021 being designed. So we're seeing positive signs from Ferrari, but yes, Sebastian Vettel, he said he was taking too many risks, and one of those risks was resulted in the spinala, or half spinala.
A half spin.
Spin.
The spin.
Yes.
Hey, I don't necessarily blame him. He's pushing the car. I suppose he's now very much in Seb's mind. I would see he would still want to be professional to the end and give them development. So the best kind of way to do that is to push the car on its limits. It isn't really necessarily affecting race performance. They know they're kind of accepting that they're getting in a kind of rubbish position. Charles Leclerc's the one who's going to get the points as much as they can. But even seeing as Charles qualifying as high as 4th and down there, a driver, we saw it a lot in practice and in pre-season testing. Max would be pushing the car to the point that it was spinning out and finding the boundaries of the car. Sebastian will be finding the boundaries, giving that feedback back to the team so that in 2021, like I said, the front wings already made the car seem a little bit more stable and drivable for the guys there.
Yep.
So that type of feedback, although it looks bad in the race and it means a meme comes out about Seb spinning again, there probably is a positive spin on that one for Ferrari.
Well, you did that.
Wait, I did that unintentionally. That was incredible. But as a matter of fact, it's a season to forget for Sebastian Vettel.
Yeah.
As much as the Ferrari car isn't good, it is one of his worst seasons driving-wise in Formula 1.
Yeah.
Despite the tough car. But I think I might have said this on F1 Dorney's Lucky Dip review that I went on early in the week, so make sure you kind of check that video out. Great channel, Dorney, so drop her a subscribe while you're there and support. But yeah, because we were talking about Giovinazzi and George Russell as well. It is really hard. Like, rubbish cars can ruin a lot of good drivers' career. And there's actually a comment in yesterday's, 2 days ago's driver ratings, yesterday when we're filming this, about someone defending Giovinazzi, clearly a Giovinazzi fan, and going there. And I get where the point is. Giovinazzi is a talented driver, and I think that often gets forgotten. And, he was saying points that Giovinazzi's beaten Kimi for the majority of the first half of the season in qualifying. He actually is leading Kimi Räikkönen in the point standing. Obviously, it's only a couple of points.
Yeah.
I think it's literally a point. But, it is nothing necessarily to shout about, but he's got the car home in the situations where the retirements have come in place and being able to take advantage of that. He's not had an awful season. He's not an awful driver. And he hasn't really been given... He has had half a season where the Alfa Romeo was competitive, where he was still finding his feet back into F1. And then the second half of the season where he got better, the car was on the decline. And then it's been in a sharper decline in this season. The only kind of comfort blanket is that Ferrari have been worse in some races for them.
Yeah.
But it's so difficult. But I'm 99% sure that Mick Schumacher will be in that Alfa Romeo seat. And that isn't necessarily knocking Giovinazzi. It's just going, hey, bad cars don't allow you to kind of perform or be at a level where you need to be.
Yeah. It's tough.
It is tough.
Maybe there are other opportunities for Gio to explore outside of the world of F1.
Oh, well, if you want to watch our IndyCar channel, Indy Fanatics, we'll leave a link to the channel in the description down below. We do on the Wednesday as well. It's kind of podcast day for us. So we have the F1 podcast and we also have the IndyCar podcast as well. A suspect, maybe a third manufacturer going to IndyCar. Looks pretty heavily, if you were to put money on it, that third manufacturer would be Ferrari in terms of the negotiations with Roger Penske, and we won't get too into kind of IndyCar notes on that. But would it be opposed Giovinazzi, single-seater, going and making space out of F1 and being an Italian frontlining their Ferrari in IndyCar?
That would be fascinating.
And then we could truly see the talent of Giovinazzi.
We would.
Because IndyCar is where racers go to race. You can't hide behind a bad car because it's a spec series mostly. And so it's where true talent is seen.
Yeah, and with Ferrari, they would have the budget massively to put on a good team.
Yes.
Rather than some of the people who do go as back markers and they don't necessarily have the team in place to go on that. But yes, Giovinazzi IndyCar might be a possibility in the future. That's something to kind of throw out and discussion. But we should probably get on to Jonty's question for the week.
Yes.
Or we're going to round off Nurburgring by talking about the actual track. Whoa.
Well, we should talk about...
No, you talk about it.
I thought you were going to pull something up.
No.
We
should talk about
fantastic FP1 debuts of Callum Milo and Mick Schumacher. Wasn't it great to see them in their overalls, their race overalls?
You're correct.
And I was like, wow, that could be them at some point in the future. Yeah, okay, they didn't get to run. Binotto has said the only chance, because he's not going to give them a go at Portimao or Istanbul, the only chance left is Abu Dhabi. And then, because isn't Abu Dhabi the F2 season finale? So even then he was like, they're going to be focused more on the championship. Because I guess they're fine with Schwartzman because Schwartzman's not in the championship. Well, he could be at that point. You never know. But probably not. Whereas Callum Milo and Schumacher are going to be viving out for the front two. So they may not even get an appearance for the rest of the season. Bam. Although, Stevens rumours...
Whoa!
As we said, Schumacher's going to be in next season. It's fine. But French TV apparently said Mazepin is already confirmed for Hassi.
Money, Russian money helps Haas out.
We know Grosjean's probably going to be in a different series, so Mazepin's probably got that seat, which means Arlott probably hasn't got a seat.
Nikita.
So there we go. There's my.
So Nikita, I think in High-Tech's first season in F2 has proven, ART are very much a team in Formula 2 that unless you are in the championship battle in the first few races, and it was always going to be who is it last season who won? Nick de Vries. It was always going to be Nick de Vries that goes forward for them. They kind of go the other way, so because Marcus Armstrong and Nikita Mazepin aren't as bad as what they looked in the second ART car in Formula 2. And Mazepin's done a decent job against Luca
He's got
Giotto.
Got race wins.
Yeah, against a more experienced teammate, Luca Giotto. And there, got race wins. He's performed very well. So he's not the worst guy who could come into the sport. And we've seen guys like Lance Stroll with financial backing develop into drivers that are respectable within the series.
Yes.
But Nikita Mazepin is not a next Lewis Hamilton.
No. But that concludes my F2 driver roundup and Stevens rumours.
Whoa! Okay, and we'll finish off talking about Nurburgring, talking about the Nurburgring. Did you enjoy it as a track back on the calendar?
Yeah. I loved it. I thought it was a great track to watch. I really liked the battles. Obviously, we didn't have a fight at the top, although we nearly did until Bottas messed up and they lost power. But yeah, I did enjoy it. I enjoyed it more than probably enjoyed it more than Mugello taking the carnage out of the equation. So there we go.
I think it was a great track, and we did our kind of track comparison videos, didn't we? Of kind of Nurburgring versus Hockenheim.
So now I'd say Nurburgring wins.
Yeah, I just think with the elevation in terms of it, that turn one is such a tricky challenge and a technical test for the drivers as well.
Yeah,
which is entertaining, and I just like the windiness of it, and it proved that although there were difficult places to take, like cars would overtake in unusual spots.
Yeah. Well, that turn 1, 2, and 3 was great. They And then the final chicane where Checo was making his move on Leclerc was great as well. So, yeah.
So
it wasn't all DRS, which is always a good thing.
Yeah, that's always a positive. And I think I saw maybe like Aidan Millward was going, not every kind of a race is going to be positive at these tracks because we had a good race this year going Mugello Nurburgring. I can agree with Mugello. Mugello for me is definitely a track that I liked as a scenery, as a glamorous part of F1. Beautiful circuit and beautiful backdrop. Absolutely amazing there. But as a F1 circuit, the Nurburgring is a very good circuit that I think does warrant a place for a German GP on the calendar, in my view. But yeah.
Can they afford it? The big question.
Probably not.
Probably not. So bye-bye, Germany.
Bye-bye.
See you next pandemic.
Because Mercedes aren't going to kind of invest in that because they know things go wrong at a thing. Although Lewis won this one, so they might be more inclined
Although
to...
Bottas retired.
They'll be okay. As long as they win the race, they'll be okay.
I saw Toto enjoyed it. Toto said, I enjoyed turn 1. So, they were all enjoying the Bottas fight. And then we're like, okay, fight over, retire.
Break his engine. We need Lewis to win this title. Come on. But even with the retirements and issues they've had this year, I think they can wrap up the Constructors' title, can't they, next race? Probably. We don't know. Anyway, we'll move on to Jonty's question of the week. We missed it the previous week because, the main reason was that I forgot to chase up Jonty.
Nice.
So it was
chased him up this week.
I did.
We got the question. Hit me.
Is it easier to be successful now than before in Formula One? And here's some stats to kind of help us sway this question. So there are some stats on people who have, got some maybe undesirable records within the sport.
Okay.
Nico Hulkenberg returned. Most races without a podium. I think this is now 182 because they're competing at the weekend. Nico Hulkenberg, 182. Most races without a podium. 2. Most races without a point. Luca Badoa, 50. Most races without a win. Our good friend from the Classic Race Reviews, Andrea De Cesaris. 208 races without a win. Most races without leading a lap. Martin Brundle, 165. Most races before first win. Mark Webber, 130, also got his first pole in that race too.
Okay.
Notable mentions as well, just some fun stats.
Some lovely notable mentions.
Most races without a pole position, Sergio Perez, 188. Most podiums without a win, Nick Heidfeld, 13. Linking in with, obviously, Renault's last podium getter before Ricciardo this in. So, do you think it is easier to be successful in Formula One nowadays than it is what it used to be?
It depends what you define as successful.
Yeah.
Do you define... I don't know.
I suppose judging by those stats, what I'm going to read it as, to achieve things like Formula One points, Formula One podiums, and maybe leading race laps as well.
Well, as we said earlier, 7 constructors have been on the podium. I don't know how many drivers that equates to. Quick maths. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 drivers. I want to say. I want to say 9.
I would say it's definitely easier to score points now.
Yeah.
In Formula One, but that's just because of the point system. Because it used to be I think up until about 2005-6. It may have been slightly later or slightly earlier. The top 6 scored points.
Top 6.
That might have been top 8. It was before that. It was top 6.
Yeah.
So definitely over time, it's become easier to score points in Formula One. And like if you're in a top team, basically,
you dominated and
Yeah.
nobody else stood a chance of scoring points on that front.
It's difficult because we've always had teams that have dominated their eras, whether it's Mercedes now or McLaren's in the 89, 90.
Yeah, even as far back as like the Lotuses in the 70s and Ferrari in the early stages. Well,
Williams have had their eras.
I would say it's harder to get a podium now.
Yeah, because you have to be in the right car.
The top teams who are good aren't like top for 1 or 2 seasons. They've been the top teams for a long while.
Yeah.
And the midfield teams, this has been an exception to the rule rather than a regular thing of 7 podiums this year. So, is it easier to be successful? Okay. No. I would say it's harder to be successful now because it may change in a couple of years again, but I would say through the years of Formula One, although budgets have been expensive, and you might have Ferrari, McLaren top teams through there, it was easier for teams to find a way. And I think, you saw independents in the past. Now, the independent teams are basically dead to the world.
Yeah.
In Formula One aspect of it. So it is, and it's been dominated by a manufacturer who could just basically blitz the competition in terms of budget.
Yeah.
So, I would say Formula One is harder now to be successful because look at Williams. They came into the sport in like 1977, I think, was the first season of the new second reiteration of Williams. 77, 78. It was around that time. And within 2 years, they had won a constructor's title and a driver's title.
Yeah, there's more of an established group at the top, and there's more and more difficult to be a breakthrough.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You definitely couldn't ever have seen Haas coming in 2 seasons and challenging for a driver's world title.
Yeah.
Especially on their budget F1 option, which may work actually in the future on that. So there you go, Jonty. That's the answer to your question. We've had our say. What do you think? Is it easier to be successful in F1 nowadays? Maybe if you're a top team, it is.
Maybe.
But yeah, I don't know. I would say as a whole, general to that question, no. So I suppose where we round off this podcast would be talking about the man himself, the King of Spain, Fernando Alonso.
Making his Renault test debut. Well, it's not really a test debut. It's just making his first Renault test of his next stint in F1. Confirmed for at least 2 years. Could be more. Could this be the start of Fernando's F1 title bid?
Okay.
Stunned.
Well, obviously, we've just finished watching. Recently, Amazon Prime have released a documentary on Fernando that followed him. It is majority in Spanish, so you have to kind of, if you're English like us or English is your first language, obviously a lot of subtitles reading. But it was a fascinating series, a kind of a good look, especially into the behind the scenes of World Endurance Championship and the Dakar Rally.
That was great.
Fascinating for him. Yeah. But it was also a good eye-opener into Fernando as a person and how he approaches racing. And he needs a sniff. He will be detailed. He will be there helping the team to improve at every possible stage. And I know obviously people think that Fernando isn't great at developing a car. I think that's a massive myth.
Well, yeah, McLaren said he was crucial for McLaren's growth.
And I would say of those people who argued last year going, oh, it's just the environment with Carlos Sainz and Lando Norris that has made the car so much better. I would say
that actually it was Fernando Alonso and Stoffel van Dorn's feedback from the 2018 season that made 2019 such a great year for McLaren. And because they've been a bit up and down, has actually been through the inexperience or lack of great quality feedback like they would have got from Fernando. And they're not saying that Lando Norris and Carlos are bad at it, but just not as good as what the other two would have been. So I think going into this test and seeing how Renault have improved this year in the hands of Fernando Alonso as an F1, I mean, everyone knows that I'm a big Fernando fan. But as an F1 fan, that's exciting because he isn't going into a midfield team. He's going into a team that come 2022, if they continue on this trajectory, very well could be competing for race wins.
Yeah.
And 100%. Fernando only needs a sniff, as in, 2010, 2012 has proven, in not the best car, but still pretty damn good cars. I think it's a myth that they were awful Ferraris. They weren't great, and Massa had tailed off, especially after his 2009 incident with the bolt, wasn't it, that went into his helmet?
Yeah.
And that saw him miss half the 2009 season. I think Renault and Alonso together, especially if they've had success before, he's got mechanics that he's known and worked with before, senior within that team. I think it genuinely could be a very good partnership.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think that's all to
Alpine.
say on it.
It'll be Alpine racing, won't
It will be Alpine racing. To promote that sports brand who've released one car.
And you know what sells sports cars? F1 race wins. Guaranteed.
Yeah. Maybe. But yeah, that's it for the F1 podcast today. We hope you guys have enjoyed our kind of little chat about the weekend's action and obviously F2 season rumours, Jonty's stat or question of the week, and obviously rounding off, how do you think the partnership with Renault and Fernando are going to line up? And if you were in that seat should have gone to a Renault Junior camp, have you changed your mind since? Or do you still believe Fernando Alonso and Renault is the wrong decision? Interesting to hear from you in the comments below. And if you're new around here, you haven't done so already, Stephen, what can they do?
You can like, subscribe, and ding that bell.
Ding it! That's it from us today, guys. So for now, you F1 fans, keep racing!